Plants are in many ways mysterious. Humans often neglect to see them even if they are all around us. We might be aware that plants are crucial to support human lives, but we rarely notice them, as they have become background. Lately, a new discipline has emerged to rectify this: critical plant studies. The field aims to explore our relationships with plant life and challenge many of our anthropocentric misconceptions about their agency in world-making. One way to do so is by researching human-plant relationships in the everyday. For example, many people started their journey with houseplants during the 2020 lockdowns of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sales of houseplants in the UK alone rose by 500%. If even before we had a sense that houseplants improved our living space, it was the protracted time spent indoors that made people realize the importance that plants can have in our life. Plants gained a spotlight in the lives of many humans as they were creating a pleasant and comfortable environment, giving us something to do at a time when everything seemed to collapse, inspiring hope with the opening of a new leaf, and providing us with stories to tell people we could only see remotely. For those who could stay safely at home, spending extended periods of time looking after houseplants became an occasion not only to keep busy, but also to discover a new world. As plants contributed to remaking daily routines, many humans had time to notice them for the first time and thus appreciate their existence. That they move, they grow, even if slowly, they communicate their needs and offer companionship. That moment of realizing that houseplants are more than a pretty background was, for many, transformative. It led to a new way of interacting with them, from rearranging living spaces so that plants could thrive, to making time for nurturing them. Houseplants stopped being background, so much so that once the lockdowns were over, many rearranged their schedules to include houseplant time. But what happens when we create connections with houseplants that are personal, effective, and intimate? How does realizing that plants can be companions change human understanding of their roles in our life? Can the act of noticing them anew lead to different, less anthropocentric ways to inhabit the planet? And perhaps to build a future together? Anthropologist Natasha Myers has written extensively about plant-human relationships, starting from labs where plants are studied and used for scientific research. Since the start of her journey, she was interested in exploring the more personal relationships that scientists develop with plants, despite encountering much resistance in academic spaces. This way of approaching plant research, by focusing on how human-plant relationships develop effectively, resonates with indigenous ontologies that understand plants and humans as kin. Indigenous ontologies become foundational in supporting a shift towards understanding the problem of extinction. To engage with non-human beings as kins provides us with additional tools to challenge the many violences of settler colonial patriarchal anti-black capitalism, and to dismantle hierarchies among species that relegate non-humans to subordinate positions. This exploration is a response to Myers' call to learn to conspire with the plants to build more livable futures. The Planthroposcene describes this aspiration to create a mode of relating to the plants that is appreciative of their agency in world-making. To conspire with the plants is as political. It evokes images of plants for secret meetings and plots, which resonate well with the Latin roots of this verb, con, together, and spirare, breathe, or the ability to breathe together. So let's start again. Who made this planet livable and breathable for animals like us? Say it out loud. The photosynthetic ones. Plants are responsible for the production of oxygen, which enables animal life. We take in what plants give away. This relationship is what keeps us alive. Inhabiting the Planthroposcene means to stop thinking of humans as the only actors in the making of history. We build worlds in collaboration with non-human beings, other animals and plants. By highlighting the act of breathing together as foundational to world making, we point to the need of challenging the stories of life and death that only account for human agency. Moreover, by understanding that plants aren't there for us and questioning the old human-non-human dualism, we resist the absurdity of calculating their lives in terms of economic benefits. Myers encourages us to say no to conventional ecology's exacting metrics that justify an extractive ecology indebted to expansion and dispossession. Beware of Anthropocene ecologies that reduce land care practices to resource management. Do ecology otherwise. Indeed, the Planthropocene is a mode of appreciating life on Earth that relies on plant-human hybrids. We depend on plants for breeding, food, medicine, and leisure, and we need to make them visible in the stories we tell. How can we move towards the future by fostering collaborations rather than deepening processes of extraction? How can we build alliances with plants? Clearly, to inhabit the Planthropocene requires imagination and creativity. So how can we learn to be together? Moving to the garden allows us to explore how to foster human-plant alliances. Our task is to attend to the garden as an everyday site that contains tensions, frictions, and potentials. It is perhaps an ideal space for experimenting with the politics of the Planthropocene. Following Myers' call to garden against Eden, we're taught to let plants grow where they need. The manicure garden is a site of domination where plant agency is silenced in favor of human vision. Plants that do not comply with this vision are labeled as weeds, treated as unwelcome visitors, to be quickly and violently eliminated. Interestingly, researchers write about how the practice of weeding was crucial in providing a vocabulary to narrate the wish to weed unwelcome human migrants too. The garden is a place which tests the human delusion of total control. Despite landscaping, weeding, and trimming, the plants grow back where they want. What would happen instead if we were to let them be? To grow a garden with the plants means to pay attention to their needs, desires, and visions. It means to forego geometric flower beds to participate in the making of more chaotic assemblies of vegetal beings. Plant conspiracies start by discarding our visions of ordered beauty. Design is a practice for all, plants included. This is not about them taking over entirely, though. For the garden to become a site of collaboration, we need to listen to each other, trust our different knowledges, and find compromises. We are in a moment of shift. There are cracks in the paradigm of nature as resource, an idea based on colonial epistemologies that act in service of capitalism. Now, it is important to nurture practices that do not just change our material conditions but also our understandings of what plants are. Tune into the different ways they do time. Learn to follow their tempos and rhythms. Plants are for Myers life-forming, which means that how we engage with them is not only about future building, but also means curating the present and the everyday. She imagines the Planthroposcene as an aspirational episteme and way of doing life, in which people come to recognize their profound implication with plants. We endorse an ethic of expanding our knowledge and senses, disrupting colonial Western science, all while keeping in mind that whatever moral responsibilities we have towards plants, they do not and should not bring any doubts regarding our responsibilities towards each other as animals. In her writings, Myers encourages us to become sensitive, to attune our senses to the plants, and in doing so, to vegetalize. How? Well, we can vegetalize by learning to understand what plants need. We can imagine how it is to feel planty by standing in the garden with them. We can hone our senses by indulging in shared passions, sunlight, and water. As the background becomes foreground, we welcome plants into our lives, noticing and acting with them. We only needed to catch our breath to be able to see that they have always been here, one step ahead